You step off the sidewalk and into the entrance of the underground, leaving the noise of Pioneer Square behind. The air changes immediately, cooler, still, carrying the faint smell of damp brick and dust that hasn't moved for decades. The city above feels distant, muffled, like you've stepped into a version of Seattle that never finished living. Your footsteps echo as you descend the first set of stairs. The light fades with each step, replaced by the soft glow of old bulbs strung along the ceiling. Down here, the walls feel close, the air feels heavy, and every sound seems to travel farther than it should. At the bottom of the stairs, you find yourself standing in front of an old storefront, a wooden door with peeling paint, a display window clouded with age. Behind the glass, you can just make out the shape of a mannequin dressed in clothes from another century. Except, the mannequin wasn't there a moment ago. You blink, look again. The window's empty. A soft sound echoes down the buried sidewalk. Footsteps, slow and steady, coming from deeper in the dark. You turn toward the sound, but the corridor is empty. Just brick, shadow, and the faint hum of the city above you. Then, from somewhere behind you, a whisper. Just one word. You can't tell what it said, but you know it wasn't yours. Welcome back to Haunts of the Pacific Northwest. Tonight we're stepping beneath the city, into the buried streets and forgotten storefronts of the Seattle Underground. It's a place most people only hear about on tours or in passing, but down here, the past isn't just preserved, it lingers. It settles into the brick and the dust and the silence in a way that feels different from anywhere else in the city. The underground exists because Seattle made a big mistake. It built itself too low, too close to the tides, too vulnerable to the water and the waste and the chaos of a growing city. And when the Great Fire tore through downtown in 1889, the city didn't just rebuild, it built over itself, raised the streets, buried the old ones, left entire blocks sealed in the dark. For a while, people still lived and worked down here. They ran shops, walked these sidewalks, climbed ladders to reach the new city above. And when the upper streets were nearly finished, the underground was abandoned, left to the shadows, the dust, and the memories of the people who passed through. Walking through these corridors now, you can feel all of that. The weight of the fire, the desperation of the early years, the lives that unfolded in the half-light, and the stories that never made it into the history books. Some places feel haunted because of what people say about them. The underground feels haunted because of what it remembers. Seattle wasn't supposed to have an underground. It wasn't planned or designed or imagined as part of the city's future. It happened because the city screwed up, basically. And then they tried to fix it in the most complicated way possible. In the early days, Seattle was built right at sea level. The tides flooded the streets, sewage flowed backwards, and if you were sitting on a toilet, well, just hope you weren't. Rats thrived, basements filled with water, and every heavy rain turned the roads into mud thick enough to swallow wagon wheels. People complained, but the city kept growing anyway. Then in 1889, the Great Seattle Fire tore through downtown. A glue pot boiled over in a cabinet shop, and within hours, 25 blocks were gone. Wooden sidewalks, storefronts, saloons, hotels, everything burned. Miraculously, no deaths were officially recorded, but the destruction was total. The city had to decide whether to rebuild the same way or start over. Seattle chose both. The city decided to raise the streets by as much as 20 feet to solve the flooding problem. But businesses didn't want to wait years for the new streets to be built, so they rebuilt their storefronts at the original level, the level that had just burned, while the city slowly constructed new elevated streets above them. For a while, Seattle existed on two layers. People walked the old sidewalks below, while wagons and carriages rolled along the new streets above. Ladders connected the two levels. It was chaotic, dangerous, and strangely alive. The city literally climbing over itself. When the upper streets were finally finished, the lower sidewalks and storefronts were sealed off. Some were filled with rubble, others were left intact, frozen in time. The underground became a shadow version of the city, dark, dusty, and forgotten. But it didn't stay empty. During the years of Reconstruction, the underground became home to the parts of Seattle that didn't fit neatly into the new, respectable city above. Gambling rooms, brothels, opium dens, illegal bars. People lived down here, worked down here, hid down here. Some were running from the law. Some were running from their past. Some were just trying to survive. By the early 1900s, the city closed the underground for good. Too dangerous, too unstable, too many stories the city didn't want to deal with. And for decades, it stayed sealed. A buried world beneath the sidewalks. A place where the past didn't disappear so much as settle into the brick and the dust. In the 1960s, the underground was rediscovered and opened to the public, but only a fraction of it is accessible. The rest remains locked away. Dark corridors, collapsed stairways, forgotten rooms, and entire blocks of the old city still sitting in the shadows. What they show in the tours is, like I said, just a fraction of what is actually still down there. So walking through it now, you can feel the weight of everything that happened there. The fire, the rebuilding, the desperation, the lives lived in the half light, and the stories that never made it into the history books. The underground isn't just a piece of Seattle's past, it's a part the city tried to bury and couldn't. The underground's hauntings feel different than the other ones at Pike Place Market. They're quieter, more atmospheric, and shaped as much by the stories people tell as by anything that's been documented. Down here, the line between history and folklore blurs. Some of these hauntings come from guides who walked these corridors for decades. Others come from visitors who swear they saw something in the dark. All of them add to the underground's strange, lingering energy. Edward is the underground's most well-known spirit, although I think he's more of folklore and story told by the tour guides of the underground. He was a bank teller killed in a robbery gone wrong. Guides and visitors describe a man in period clothing standing near the old vault, watching silently. Cold spots appear around the vault door. Footsteps approach and stop just behind you. A shadow lingers in the corner of your vision. Edward never interacts, never speaks. He just watches. And near the same bank, a woman's apparition is seen reflected in glass or polished metal. Some say she was connected to the robbery. Others think she worked in the building long before the fire. Her presence is quiet, a silhouette, a soft whisper, a momentary figure in a doorway that disappears when you look directly at her. During Reconstruction, the underground housed several brothels, including the Oriental Hotel. People report women in long dresses walking the corridors, perfume scents drifting through sealed rooms, and soft laughter echoing from behind closed doors. These spirits don't seem trapped or distressed, or like they're still moving through the spaces where they once lived and worked. The Great Seattle Fire didn't officially claim any lives, but the aftermath was chaotic. People were injured, families were displaced, businesses collapsed. Some visitors describe seeing figures wandering the buried sidewalks, emerging from darkened stairways, or standing silently in the corners of old storefronts. These apparitions feel more residual, like the underground holding on to the confusion and upheaval of those early days. A well-dressed man appears at the end of long corridors wearing a bowler hat and a dark coat. He stands still, watching, then vanishes when approached. Some guides think he was a businessman from the Reconstruction era. Some say he's tied to the gambling rooms that once operated down here. One of the most common reports: footsteps pacing behind tour groups, slowly, steady, matching your pace. When you stop, the footsteps stop. When you turn around, the corridor is empty. His presence feels more curious than threatening, like someone walking with you, not after you. Soft giggles, soft footsteps. A child's handprint appears on dusty glass. There are no records of children living down here, but families passed through constantly during Reconstruction. These hauntings feel light, fleeting, like echoes of kids exploring the strange, half-built city beneath their feet. In sealed sections of the underground, people hear faint conversations, not words, just the cadence of voices. The sound stops the moment someone tries to listen closely. Some guides say the underground talks to itself, carrying the echoes of long gone vendors, workers, and residents. In one sealed off area, a faint glow appears behind a locked door. There's no electricity running to the room, no access, no explanation. The light comes and goes without pattern, like someone moving through a space no one has entered in decades. There's also a tall shadow often seen standing at the bottom of a stairwell, motionless, waiting. When people descend the stairs, the shadow slips out of sight. Some describe it as a man, others say it's just a shape, but everyone agrees it feels aware. In the oldest parts of the underground, where the original sidewalks still sit beneath layers of dust, people hear footsteps walking past them, steady, purposeful, like someone heading to work. These sounds often come from sections that are completely sealed. In certain storefronts, reflections show a figure standing behind you, a man in old clothing, a woman in a long dress, or sometimes just a shape. When you turn around, the space is empty. The underground is full of glass that hasn't reflected a living person in a century, and sometimes it seems to remember the ones it used to. Walking through the underground feels different from walking through any other part of Seattle. Up on the surface, the city is loud and bright and constantly moving. Down here, everything slows down. The air feels heavier, the silence feels older, and the past feels closer in a way that's hard to explain until you're standing in it. Most cities bury their mistakes. Seattle literally built a new version of itself on top of the old one. The underground is what's left of that first attempt. The sidewalks that didn't work, the storefronts that flooded, the places people lived and worked while the city tried to figure out what it wanted to be. It's a reminder that progress isn't clean or simple. It's messy, layered, full of things we'd rather forget. And maybe that's why the underground feels the way it does. Not haunted in a frightening way, but full of stories, full of echoes, full of the people who passed through these corridors when there were still part of the living city. Some of these stories made it into the history books. Most didn't, but the building remembers them anyway. Some places feel alive because of the people in them. The underground feels alive because of the people who aren't. Thanks for joining me in the buried streets of Seattle. The underground is a strange place. Part history, part folklore, part echo. It's easy to think of it as a curiosity beneath the sidewalks. But when you're standing in those old corridors surrounded by brick and dust and silence, it feels like something more. A reminder that cities don't just grow upward. They grow over themselves. They leave pieces behind. Up on the surface, Seattle looks modern. Down here, you can still see the version that came before it. The one built too low, too fast, too close to the tides. The one that burned. The one that rebuilt itself in the shadows. And the one that never fully disappeared. Next time, we're heading south to a place with a very different kind of presence. A place tied to tragedy, rumor, and one of the darkest stories in Seattle's lore. A building that has carried its reputation for decades, and where the line between myth and memory gets very thin. The Georgetown Morgue. Until then, stay curious, stay safe, and stay aware of what might be moving in the dark beneath your feet.